if you're going to sell, that's the place to go. If you're going to buy, go to a more mature audience and one of the other boards. But if you're selling, there are so many idiots on that board that will buy anything. I mean, they'll buy samples of BTAC, for God's sake.
Hey everyone, we know that the roundtables are a crowd favorite, and I hope that you're going to watch them live next time. So you can also do that, but you also need to subscribe to us on iTunes, because your iTunes subscriptions are what helps keeps the show numbers up, and we can continue this to keep going. We've had a few people mention that some of our earlier podcasts have actually fallen off of iTunes. Well, we kind of did a little research and found out that iTunes only shows 99 episodes at a time, and we are well beyond that point at this point. So if you're just now joining us, you can listen to all the earlier episodes by going to bourbonpursuit.com. Remember, if you have a friend getting into bourbon, tell him or her about this podcast and continue sharing. I've been incredibly lucky, especially during this bourbon hunt, to see people around Louisville that have listened to the podcast and say that they had a friend turn them on to it. The iTunes reviews are awesome, so please, please, please keep those coming in. With that, enjoy this week's episode.
Ed Bly and Rising Tide Spirits are back again with a new release of Old Stubborn Bourbon. And this release of Old Stubborn is a premium hand marriage of 10, 11, and 12-year cask strength, barely filtered pot still bourbon. It comes in at a staggering 123.8 proof, and the flavoring grain for this one, which the last one was wheated, but this time it's now rye. Rich, sweet, and bold with a long finish that's sure to be another eye-opener. You can order online at Sealbox or thebourbonconcierge.com, and you can even purchase in person at Revival Vintage Spirits, and even now with very few select stores in Kentucky. You can get it now while you can, but be sure to do it because it's not going to last long.
Play Whiskey Wednesday, Round 11, the memory game. Until June 26, each week you can win one of our 12 incredible grand prizes. Select $2 at checkout. And if they match on drawing night, you'll win that bottle. Not a match? No worries. You still score a Weller 12-year. Every $5 ticket gives you 5 chances to win, including 4 weekly bonus prizes. Get your tickets now at give270.org. Charitable Gaming License ORG 0002703.
Do you ever pour yourself a bourbon, swirl it around, and then start struggling to come up with tasting notes? And perhaps you're also looking for a good Father's Day gift idea. Well, you can now solve both with a kit from Knows Your Bourbon. And unlike other nosing kits on the market, Knows Your Bourbon kits feature real ingredients for the most authentic aromas. You can smell real Tahitian vanilla bean instead of some synthetic aroma that's just made from chemicals. So head on over to knowsyourbourbon.com. and enter code BP10 for 10% off your order. Always find what you love at Total Wine & More. With so many great bottles to choose from at the lowest price, it's easy to find your favorite Cabernet or a new single barrel bourbon to try with some help from one of their friendly guides. And with every bottle comes the confidence of knowing you just found something amazing. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly and be 21. From their bar to yours, Chad and Sarah of the popular YouTube channel It's Bourbon Night bring you their favorite at-home old-fashioned mix with the new Elemental Elixirs Golden Hour Syrup. It's a custom-made syrup with notes of bold black tea, warm spices, and orange zest. All you need is your favorite whiskey and ice. No bitters needed. One bottle makes 16 drinks, so that's only $1 a cocktail before you add your own whiskey. They can also be enjoyed in other cocktails or spirits, mocktails, coffee, tea, and anything you can think of. It's crafted locally in Lexington, Kentucky, and you can get your bottle now at whiskeyambitions.com. Welcome back to the episode of the Bourbon Pursuit Podcast, the official podcast of bourbon, the number one podcast of bourbon if you do a search on iTunes as well. We have the 13th edition of the Bourbon Community Roundtable, which is always a crowd favorite. I think I've said it, well, this will be the 13th time now. We do this on YouTube Live, so if you want to be a part of this, go ahead, join it, click the link, and you can be a part of the discussion. We've got a chat rolling in. We've got a little bit over 45 viewers right now. So this is going to be a fun one. Ryan, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing well. I was having some first world problems with my Wi-Fi. so I'm just a little late to the party, but glad to be here. Really excited for this one.
Well, good. I'm glad we can do that. And, we always, Brian can't make it tonight, and I didn't do what I could usually do is try to find somebody else. I was too busy doing some other stuff. But I also we have to talk about, we got a new face on the roundtable tonight. I don't know, guys, how long do you think that we've talked and said, like, this third guy, he doesn't exist?
The entire time. I thought it was just, they took a picture of the two of their faces and somehow made Eric, out of this, but he's a real person.
Free writers.
Yeah, he is a real person.
So, Eric from Breaking Bourbon, man, welcome to the show.
Woohoo! Thanks, guys.
You made it.
So I guess
victory.
Yeah. Before we kick it off, man, I guess you got to tell us a little bit about you because, we talk about Jordan and Nick all the time. So I guess give us a little bit of your background and where you're coming from and all that good stuff.
Like the guys probably said, the three guys, the Breaking Bourbon guys, we all grew up together. We've been friends for a long, long time, elementary school. Got into bourbon kind of at the same time. And, we started the website. But for me personally, I guess I have a background in graphic design and website development and that sort of thing. And that's kind of where our hobby kind of came out of too. It's, hey, let's write about bourbon, and we have the tools to kind of make a website and do this.
So what would you say is your specialty of the website? Because I know that, you guys all kind of share the reviews, but you do some reviews too. Do you think you do reviews better than Nick and Jordan?
Absolutely.
His HTML is way better.
That's our goal tonight, is to pin one Breaking Bourbon member against the others.
Yeah, most people say I'm the best Breaking Bourbon member.
Yeah. That's what we're looking for. That's the soundbite.
I can tell you,
mainly my mom, but
yeah.
I can tell you that Breaking Bourbon, the way that you lay out information is so easy to read. That's why people
Big
love
letters.
Yeah, well, it's so detailed, and people love to use your posts when they try to sell stuff. Mm-hmm. So congratulations on helping to contribute to that.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little about that and, some of the reviews that you all have done, but I want to let the other two guys
sitting on the floor. I was just curious.
Kerry's in his you missed that before we started recording. He's in his new environment now that he is not banished to the basement forever. So he's just chilling on his couch, eating his frozen pizza.
His basement got flooded. He had to move upstairs.
Oh, my kitchen's so pretty now.
Nice.
So I want to let you guys go. So Kerry, you've already started talking. So kind of talk about, where you blog from and your favorite kind of pizza as well.
All right. So I'm Kerry. I like long walks on the beach and pepperoni pizza with extra sauce on it from Papa John's. I run suburbia.com, suburbia.com. You can follow me on Twitter at bourbon_gamer. And you can also find me, as usual, on what board, Blake? Bourbon R Facebook group.
Bourbon R Facebook group.
That's right.
He is the official sponsored admin for the entire page. So if you have a problem with the post getting deleted, just go ahead and hit up Kerry. He'll let you know why it was taken down.
He's the moderator.
Yeah, okay. He's the official moderator.
I'm not admin. I just moderate, right?
Yeah. All right. My up.
Yep, you're up, Blake.
All right. I'm Blake from Bourboner.com. You can find me at Bourboner.com/blog, the Bourboner Facebook group, Twitter, Instagram, slowly trying to put more stuff on YouTube. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome. So there was some good news in bourbon and whiskey this week. Some of it was sleuthing from Kerry, which we'll talk about towards the end of the show. But there's one big name in whiskey that's out there. That's Jim Murray, and he came out with his picks for the top whiskeys of the year. And I don't know, maybe it was a surprise to me. I don't know about you guys because everybody's gotten a chance to try it and taste it. And Jim Murray picked E.H. Taylor's 4 Green, which was a limited release. It was probably a few months ago is when it came out as his choice for whiskey of the year.
Immediately, it didn't take more than 4 hours that the prices on the secondary market went up about $100. So it went from about a $200 bottle to about a $300 bottle. And it was down to a $200 bottle because, in my opinion, and I think in some other people's opinions, it wasn't that good. So I kind of want to push it over to somebody else to kind of think about what are your thoughts on the H. Taylor 4-grain. And is Jim Murray just losing credibility over here, as Z Hayden 35 said?
I think before we talk about 4-grain itself, I want to know, how do you pronounce a 2007 Whiskey of the Year in September? I mean, is it based on a calendar, like an academic calendar year? Are we talking about
2007 was 10 years ago.
No, how do you pick the Whiskey of the Year in September? So he announced a winner in August, and he does a previous year. So in 2016, he actually awarded William LaRue Weller from 2014.
Is that how it's supposed to work?
Well, I'm looking at it, it says Booker's Rye won 2017.
Booker's Rye was 2016, right?
Is it 2017 is actually 20? I don't know.
So Max Christie's figuring this out for us. So he's calling 4-grain as the winner of 2018.
Okay.
Booker's Rye was of 2017. Crown Royal Harvest was 2016. So now I think we've got that settled.
Right.
We can kind of move on a little bit from here. Okay.
So does the actual book doesn't come out until next year, I guess?
I would think you're correct. So,
there's no 2018 winners. Oh, it is 2018.
Yes, that is his 2018 winner. Is E.H. 4-grain, right?
Yeah. To me, it's become a way to sell books because, which I mean, I guess that's what all this is. But at the end of the day, with the Crown Royal win and Booker's, I agreed with. I actually liked the 4-grain. I thought it was good, but was it Whiskey of the Year? I don't know. I don't think so. Of course, every year it's well, so-and-so's Diageo's paying them to do this. Well, Sazerac sure took home a lot of medals this year. So somebody's paying. I guess it was Sazerac. I think they won about every whiskey category there was for American whiskey.
They got Adidas backing them, giving them cash.
That's a conversation for later in the.
Yeah,
I think that was the other issue I had with it was all Sazerac, right? It was Sazerac and scotches. There are other people out there making bourbon.
I just don't see how Al Young's done get in there. I mean, that was my favorite so far.
I thought the Al Young was in there, and even I never see Elijah Craig Barrel Proof get in there, and I thought that was awesome. A really good.
Yeah, this year's was awesome.
So who knows? I mean, there's a lot of politics at play. At the end of the day, it's a guy who has been known for rating, Scotch and other single malts and that kind of stuff. So now that he's in bourbon, I feel like he's just trying to sell more books, and his face on the front of the book still creeps me out no matter what, no matter how many times I see it. If I walk past it on my dresser, I have to hide it from my kids. So
it looks like he's trying to be the Dos Equis man or something.
Yeah.
Just whiffing hard.
I think he's one of those that markets to the person who doesn't know anything about bourbon and rye.
Yeah.
And he's like the person wants to buy a gift for someone that they know is into bourbon. They don't know what they're buying. They go into Amazon, or they go into, Barnes and Noble, and they say, "Oh, look, here's a book on world whiskeys. I know that Billy Bob drinks whiskeys," and that's kind of his market right there. Is the people who don't really know much, and the people who I remember hearing Bourbon Truth talk about him 3 or 4 years ago, just saying how ridiculous his selections were and how he was paid off by whiskey companies, and I haven't really put much credibility into him. I would take John Hansel over his opinions, any day.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of money, as you'd mentioned earlier, that gets thrown around by these whiskey companies. I mean, if you look at, even the San Francisco World Spirits competition, is there anything that doesn't get a gold or a double gold? Everything does, right? If you rate it an 80, at least an 80, it deserves a gold, and then everybody markets the shit out of it. And a lot of these are really you pay to play, right? I mean, it's all it's sponsored by those kinds of companies. And so therefore they have a vested interest in it at the same exact time. Eric, I kind of want to get your thoughts too. I know we're kind of speaking over you here.
That's right. I liked 4 grain. I didn't think it was great, but I enjoyed it, and it had a different taste to it. It was kind of interesting, and I think maybe Jim Murray he tastes so many different things that something like that's just a little different kind of sticks out to him, and maybe he remembers it more or goes on a short list, and then as he goes down, he goes, which one did I really remember the most going through these? What made the impact on me? And maybe that's how he picked it. I don't know. Maybe he gets sick of picking antique collection every year. That's not going to sell books.
Alex Catalan kind of made a pretty good comment, and he said if you award the big boys, then those books are going to end up in their gift shop and probably promotional materials and packages going forward. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it does make sense that they would do that too.
That's a great point. Yeah. And it's not that 4 grain really was that controversial. I think last year we were more bewildered that he chose such a terrible whiskey as his world whiskey of the year. If any of you have tried the Northern Harvest Crown Royal, I mean,
that was like 3. Last year was Booker's Rye, right?
Yeah, last year was Booker's Rye.
Is that really 2 years ago?
Yeah, hey guys, it's a different calendar year. Just think of it as like the year. This is
kind of like the NCAA basketball season.
4 grain is the 2018 winner. Okay, so now we got that laid out, right? Well, let's not try to figure out calendar days here, but
who buys Crown Royal? Like, if anything.
The funny thing is, I remember going into the store the next day, and the shells were gone of Crown Royal Rye, and I think I still have like a bottle that's 3/4 of the way gone in my cabinet. It's a decent rye at best, nowhere near world spirit of because I remember having the conversation. I was like, well, maybe he just meant like, hey, this is whiskey of the year because it's good, it's affordable, it's available. And they're like, no, he said it's the best thing he's tasted all year long. Like, well, okay, never mind. I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but that's just not true.
Is it Michael Urado?
Mm-hmm.
He said, Jim Murray made me go out and buy Northern Harvest. He owes me $35.
Yeah, exactly. I'm right there with you, Michael.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I've had a chance to taste 4 grain. I think I'll echo some of Eric's comments. Like, yeah, it was all right. I didn't think it was anything too special. I still want a bottle for myself because just collecting and wanting something that's out and that's new. Yeah, I want it. For me, I have a theory that if they knew for the longest time that 4 grain bourbon was the best possible way to make bourbon, then they would have been making 4 grain bourbon the entire damn time, right? So that's why I don't come around and I think like, oh, this is a great bourbon or great whiskey. I don't think there was much there for me. So I was kind of, underwhelmed by it. But the Speakeasy had a good question because as we've talked about this before, the 4 grain was a limited release this year. However, we know that they're coming out with another 4 grain release next year. So how is this going to affect the chase in the market?
Yeah.
Eric's making basically like an upwards mobile graph here, just like putting his hands in the air. So yeah.
Did somebody make that point? That's a really good point. They have another batch of it coming out next year.
Is it different 4 grains or the same?
Just 1 year older.
Just 1 year older. Gotcha.
They just had a large.
Was it like 11 years or something?
Yeah,
the first
12. It'll be 12 next year.
Okay. Yeah. I don't even want to see the prices and the marketing that's going to go around it of, world's best whiskey named by, well, I guess they probably just don't even name it. They say world's best whiskey and it's now available. Every store who gets a bottle is going to immediately put that on the shelf, which, perfect for marketing. But if you're just wanting to buy a bottle, there go your chances. Because wasn't that the one that had like a super high bottle count the first time?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But, we live in a day and age in bourbon where it doesn't matter. I mean, if it's limited edition, it's already going to have a higher price.
Oh, yeah.
If it even hits a shelf. So I think that's irrelevant whether or not Jim Murray praises it. I mean, we're going to still fight for it. And most of us are still going to pay more than we should for it.
Yeah, that's typical. But it's one of those things that people are going to go for it no matter what. I honestly, I was a little relieved when it started dropping down in price in the secondary market, and you could get it for $200 and $100 over retail. Like for a limited release, you're like, okay, well that's actually not too bad. Then this shit happens, and now it's going to make it a little bit harder to come across and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and let's kind of move on to the next subject here. And I haven't had a chance to try it. I know because I don't get samples ever sent to me, but I know a few guys here have had the chance to try the new Woodford Reserves Master Collection. So whoever has some information can talk to us about it. Go ahead and kind of give some info.
What is it?
Exactly. That's why I'm asking Blake or Eric or Kerry over here.
I don't get
Woodford toasted rye or something. Is it?
I think I talked too bad about Brown Foreman for a while because I don't get anything from them. No Old Forester, no Woodford.
That's why we don't get it because of Ryan.
Well,
we can't help it that Woodford sucks. No, just kidding.
All right, so Kerry's got the bottle in front of us. So Kerry, kind of spill some information about what this is. Talk about it. Don't show it. This is an audio podcast.
Masters Collection Cherry Wood Smoked Barley. So they took some Woodford, and they took cherry wood, and they smoked it. And they ate barley, and they spit back in the barrels, and then they dumped a bunch of Woodford in it, and then they rolled them down the pastures.
Down that little rail,
I don't think that was in the press release.
Oh, no. I got and then they bottled it and sent it out to the world. So I think it's terrible. But Breaking Bourbon disagrees with me, so we've got a little fight going on. So
nice. I'm ready to hear y'all.
Yeah,
it out.
Come on, Eric. Let's go ahead. Talk about it.
Yeah, so I'm the one that reviewed it, so this works out good. So it actually has 30% malt in it, and that makes it definitely different than their usual. So I thought I enjoyed it quite a bit. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I thought the nose was really bright. I had a kind of almost like a cherry Kool-Aid smell. The flavor, the palate wasn't super strong, which I think it could have been a little stronger, but I enjoyed it. And I think the malt really is kind of comes across pretty strong over it. And then you got a little bit of that cherry and smoke on more on the finish and a little heat on the finish. I enjoyed it a lot more than the last couple, especially the Pinot Noir one from a couple years ago I reviewed. And then, the brandy last year was decent, but I thought this year was a big improvement. And after trying it, I actually want to buy a bottle of it this year.
Did you? Well, first of all, did you try the white corn?
No.
White corn.
Yeah, so epic fail.
That ruined me to Woodford Master Collection because that was far and away probably the worst product that was released in the past 5 years. And that's saying a lot because there's a lot of orphan barrels that came out that I think Hoop and Holler was almost undrinkable.
Hoop and Holler was pretty bad.
White corn. So I will say this. Are you a fan of Japanese whiskey?
Yeah. Not a humongous fan. I like bourbon, but I enjoyed it.
I think it reminds me of a Japanese whiskey. I think that the malted barley does definitely come through. And I think that's maybe why I don't like it. I'm not a big Scotch.
It definitely tastes different.
Is it close to like a Parker's malt or anything like that?
Yeah, and that's actually what I'm drinking here tonight is Parker's malt.
Okay.
It is.
There's definitely like a smokier malt to it.
How smoky is it? Is it,
not overly
more
smoky.
That peated smoke, but okay.
Just a little bit.
I feel like the last few smoky whiskeys I've had have just been like a campfire. And
no, I wouldn't describe it as a campfire at all.
Yeah, it tastes like twigs.
Okay. This reminds me a little bit of the American Prairie West. So I would say a little bit.
What's the age on it?
I don't know if they told us.
No age statement. Yeah, there's no age.
Their bourbon's usually 6 to 8, right?
It's somewhere around there. I think Woodford does something that's a little bit interesting, and I'll be the one to give them little accolades here, right? I think that us as a lot of bourbon drinkers in the market are starting to get a little spoiled, and we are starting to expect a certain level of what bourbon should taste like, or a certain level of like they should, have this bourbon characteristic. Maybe they're just slightly different nuances between different distilleries. However, what they're doing is they're going like completely off the rails here, right? Is they're trying to make something that's completely like is going to like make you go like, oh, this is not like a bourbon at all. This is a completely different, taste palette, completely different everything, right? I mean, Eric, you're drinking that Parker's malt that was the PhD release from 2 years ago. And I didn't think it was very good. However, I still like a bottle just to be able to say like, let's change it up every once in a while. And I think that's some of the problems that some of the more experienced bourbon drinkers are kind of not realizing, is that you need to just be able to have like just go and experience different flavors that are out there. Like they all shouldn't just taste like generic bourbon anymore. Like if they're going to try to push the envelope and try to do new things, like you have to understand that there's going to be mostly fails, but there's going to be some wins. But a lot of these are just going to have something that you're going to have to understand that it's not going to just taste like a normal or regular bourbon. It's got to be outside of that to make you want to, try something different, I guess you could say.
I don't think they call this a bourbon though. I think they actually, because of the way that they smoked the malt, they actually just call it cherry wood smoked barley. This is not technically a bourbon.
Which that is, I mean, to Kerry's point, that is interesting. Buffalo Trace is over here using lasers and all kinds of other things to get their experimental collections. This seems a little more within the whiskey realm of, hey, we smoked cherry with cherry wood, the malt. And so while you may not get the flavors you recognize, it's still an interesting take to see what happens. Is it still in the same Master's Collection price of like $100 or so?
Yeah, it'll be
it's $100.
And
the bottle actually says Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey.
It does, it does say. I see the bottle does say Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey.
Which I guess as long as it's 35%, still enough for 51 of the corn.
I guess it wasn't the barrel that I thought. It was the malt itself. Was I guess they use a kilning process, and they use smoked cherry wood to malt the barley.
That's interesting. At least it's something different, right? So
I would totally agree. I mean, they are actually trying. They are putting out a product that actually is aging, as opposed to lasers and TerraPure and stuff like that. And honestly, Brown-Forman has been killing it, I think, lately with a couple of really good products. So
I'm actually drinking.
While I'm not a big fan of it. I do salute the fact that they are trying different recipes for stuff. I would agree with that.
Oh man, I think we had a few Brown-Forman converts tonight.
Yeah, well, and I will compliment Brown-Forman. I'm drinking a double oaked rye that's from Woodford. It's actually pretty good. I like it.
Which the regular Woodford rye is actually really good. And we all know 1920, of course, from Old Forester. So, for being my least favorite distillery, they've put out some releases that I would definitely drink on multiple occasions. So,
I love Statesman. I love this year's birthday bourbon.
I haven't had the Statesman yet.
It's really good.
I just can't pull the trigger.
I gotta go see the movie first, and then I can feel like I'm allowed to buy it.
And with typical fashion, we've got a lot of comments rolling in. Kyle Anderson, Z Hayden, everybody just is talking about Old Forester 1920 as their favorites and stuff. So we typically give a shout out for that. It seems like every show, along with Henry McKenna. So
yeah,
it's a must, because if you don't, then somebody is guaranteed to comment, "You guys only talk about bourbons I can't find." So they say, no, go listen to minute 21:36. And
Statesman is a $55 bourbon, and even though it's less proof than the 1920, the barrels came from a hotter source in the warehouse, and I think it comes through in the taste.
Somebody asked, I don't know if any of you guys have had a chance to try Corsair's Triple Smoke. I haven't. Somebody's asking if you have.
Yeah, I've had it. It's actually, I think I still have it in the cabinet somewhere. It tasted more like a mezcal to me, or like just very intense, like more burnt, like a hickory smoke, or like I don't even remember the woods they use, but you gotta be in the right mood to enjoy that one. Corsair's one who just throws all kinds of crazy experiments as well, but that was one I did not enjoy.
Right. Somebody was asking about that. If it was smoky, like how would it compare to it? But it sounds it's going to be on two separate planes right there.
It would be, you'd probably have to take the Woodford, pour it through a couple ashtrays, and then it'd be similar to the triple smoke.
Well, I guess we're not having Corsair on the show anytime soon now either.
No, I like what Corsair does, but that's kind of their thing, is they're going to throw some crazy things out there.
Their bottles are so ugly, though. They have the ugliest thing.
Really? See, I like the
three dudes,
but I also do my designing Microsoft Paint, so that could be why I enjoy them.
I love that.
So there was another question that came out, and somebody said, "Has there ever been a good Woodford Masters release?" And if I recall correctly, there was one. I think it was 5 years ago. It was like the Forwood. Something like that. I think everybody kind of gave very positive reviews about that one.
And there was the Chardonnay finish years ago that everyone seemed to like too.
Wasn't there a rye that was pretty good a couple years back?
None of them like go for more than 99 on secondary, which I find interesting. I don't think they command much demand, but not to say that there are not some hidden gems in there. I find a lot of coal when I try them.
See, we got brandy
usually available. I always see them on the shelf all throughout the year.
Yeah, I think it was the Forwood selection in 2013 and 2012 that was pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I remember. That had some positive reviews out there. I think that's the only one that even if you can find it, will still fetch. We'll have to pay a little bit more than retail. But so let's go ahead and we'll move on, since we gave Brown Foreman their little 10 minutes on here.
Their paid sponsorship. I hope everybody got their check in the mail this week.
We got a contract in the works.
I am okay with that. If Brown Foreman, you'd like to sponsor the show, we will say all good things all the time.
They actually will if we want them to. They'll bring on some. Maybe we'll get Chris Morris on here.
We will take on.
Here's what's funny is they.
We'll get Jackie. We'll get Jackie.
Yeah, let's get Jackie. She's cute.
In 2020 or 2005 and 2006, they did a 4-grain. In 2009, 2010, they did a seasoned oak. Is Buffalo Trace just copying? They did a sweet mash. Doesn't Buffalo Trace have a sweet mash coming out?
I have no idea.
If you're not using 8 grains, you need to get out of here. Like 4 grains so yesterday. We need 8 grains.
E.H. Taylor white corn's coming very soon. Just wait for it.
Can't wait. Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify's point of sale is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. And with Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers in-line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns, from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. And get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone. Transform your tablet into a point-of-sale system, or use Shopify's point-of-sale Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Do retail right with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/bourbon, all lowercase, and go to shopify.com/bourbon to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/bourbon. If you're anything like me, then you can't get enough about bourbon. And that's why I'm a subscriber to Bourbon Plus magazine. Bourbon Plus is a quarterly publication that tells the stories from the heart of bourbon, the farmers who grow the grain, the distillers who labor over the process, and the people like you and me who raise their glasses to celebrate it all. Subscribe to Bourbon Plus magazine today at bourbonplus.com, that's PLUS.com, and use code PURSUIT
at checkout for $5 off your subscription.
So let's go ahead. Let's kind of roll on to the next topic here, right? So we are in the height of the release season. We've had antique collections start rolling out in a few different states. I know I've been on the chase. I know the secondary market, it's kind of going up, it's going down, it's kind of finding a little bit of a plateau. But there was it kind of happened this past week, and we're going to call him out, and we're going to kind of beat the hammer home a little bit. So there was another blogger from Professor Cocktail. His name's David J Montgomery. I kind of went out and titled it, put in the show notes that he's a moron for doing this, because all the bloggers on this panel, except for yours truly, they actually get antique samples sent.
Well, maybe now he'll lose his.
Now that there's an open spot, let's see if we can go ahead and take it. Well, they all get 375 milliliter samples of antique collection that are there for reviews and, trying to just get the word out and stuff like that. I don't really know if they need to send antique samples anymore, because everybody's going to say like they want it anyway. So like, what's the point?
Yeah, I'm surprised they still do it, because they can only hurt them.
375. Don't make it sound too spoiled.
They're a quarter of the size of this. Okay, so that's great.
Okay, so back to topic here. What he tried doing is actually selling his samples on the secondary market. And oddly enough, people were sitting there. I mean, I think it was up to like 200 something bucks at some point, right? But he tried, because look at it this way. People used to do this all the time with like scalping tickets on eBay. They'd say like, 2 tickets to the Ohio State Michigan game, but you're actually bidding on this Bic pen that's right here instead of the tickets, right? And so he tried doing that, saying this 375 milliliter of Blanton's, plus you get free BTAC samples, right? Mm-hmm. So
that's not what he said.
Oh yeah, he did. I read
it as you're getting both of these.
Oh yeah,
well, you're getting both. He said, but who's going to pay $200 for a 375 of Blanton's? It was just regular Blanton's, right?
Yeah, it was just the regular Blanton's. But the BTAC samples were the extra kicker that you get for free, along with the Blanton's, right? So that's his kind of, I guess you could say, trying to go underneath the radar of saying like, I'm not actually selling these, right? Which it's bullshit.
It's brilliant.
He's an asshole for doing it, because there's a lot of people that try to, they're respectable people in this world, and he kind of put a disgrace on it. So we'll kind of see what happens. Like, I think Buffalo Trace might, change their sample distribution process a little bit. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on the matter as well.
I mean, I don't see if he did anything wrong. It was a gift given to him. He's allowed to. I'm just kidding. I was going to try to play devil's advocate, but yeah, it's just that's a pretty shady thing to do. You know what those samples are given to you for. It's to do a review. Look, if you don't use all the samples, like I've given mine away and sent them to other people, but to try to sell something that just seems really shady. And shout out to Maxwell and Superfly Bourbon. Apparently, the guy has been contacted by Sazerac, and like they're threatening action, which I don't know that they could really do anything. I mean, I don't think that's a real illegal act if it didn't actually go through. But they got the inside information, Eric, as well. So it'll be interesting to see what changes from that. I mean, I'm sure he'll never get a sample from them again, but at the end of the day, you got to just be thinking a little bit better than to think that that's just going to go over well and nobody's going to have a problem with that.
I mean, who's going to sell samples anyway? Now, I do have this, though, if you guys want. I can. I mean, if y'all want to send me $25 for shipping, I'll send that for free.
Start the bidding.
And the funny thing was, there was like nothing out of his samples. I mean, it's a pretty small sample to start with. So then I'm like looking at his reviews. Well, what did he even review it on? He must have taken one sip and then thrown them up on the secondary really fast. And I swear, if he screws this sample thing up for all of us, I am going to be.
He's not. There's always idiots, and he's a moron. He posted samples like a dumbass. His name is ingrained in Buffalo Trace, but you know that The other distilleries aren't going to care. They'll still send them. He'll say, I'm a blogger. They'll send him samples, but he won't get samples from Buffalo Trace, and that's it. It's not going to go any further than that. People are greedy in this hobby. We know that. I don't think we've ever seen a level of greed like that before. Like that's pretty intense. But
I'm still surprised they responded to it. I don't know. I'm surprised they even
I feel like they had to. They just
feel like they had to, but I'm surprised they even care. I don't know.
I honestly, I don't know if they do, but they just put out the press release about spending $500,000 to crack down on the bourbon secondary market and sell illegal pappy counterfeits and all this stuff. And then that happens. And, if they say, well, who cares? Everyone's going to, just blast them. So they did the right thing from a PR perspective in my mind.
I think it just
go ahead.
Well, I was saying, I think it just shows you that they are trolling the secondary market to see what they can price stuff at and see what's going on there, so they can start to see. Well, if they're doing this, then we can do this. I don't know. It just seemed kind of I think they should stay out of it. But whatever.
Somebody ratted him out to Sazerac, and it was not me. Although I do love ratting people out. I did not send the stuff to Buffalo Trace. Somebody sent those to Buffalo Trace.
Oh yeah, and I think they sent them really fast because, according to him, he took it down, and Buffalo Trace or Sazerac contacted him and was pretty upset. Eric, I always kind of wondered, so what happens when the antique collection samples come in at breaking? Do they get split 3 ways? Do you rock, scissor, paper for them, or?
Yeah, the last 2 years we've split them up just so we can review them faster and get them on the website.
I was wondering, or if you go to David Montgomery and say, all right, I'll give you $100 for your samples.
That'd be a good smart way to do it.
John Hansel's getting full bottles, right? Where is his in-depth reviews and his barrel numbers? And
he posts on Instagram, or Twitter.
140 characters.
We need to get Hansel. Let's let the bloggers move into the 50 milliliter sample world, and let's go with full bottle. I'll even split it with you guys. I'll take the Saz 18. You guys can take a Stag if you want. Maybe I'll have the Handy, and we just do it that way. It's going to make it better for our reviews going forward. I'm going to push Buffalo Trace for that.
You go ahead.
Yeah, see what you can get down there. Yeah.
CC me on that email, and we'll see what happens.
Don't CC me. I don't want to be a part of that.
He wants to still get samples.
Somebody had a question in there. As long as we're on the topic of BTAC, they said, do you want to address the disgraceful practice of truck stalking? So I want to share with you guys a little story of how bad it's gotten in Atlanta. And we all know that it gets worse every year. We hope that there's a little bit of relief. Last Thursday, a local store, small store, but a great store, posted on their Facebook page. They said, good things happen to those who wait till Friday. So all the local Atlanta guys follow this page. He didn't even say what he was going to get. There were 15 people waiting for him to open at 9 a.m. on Friday morning. Then he said, guys, the truck's not even here. Well, the salesman had never even mentioned antique to him. He told him E.H. Taylor barrel proof 2 bottles and 1 or 2 bottles of Old Weller antique. So but he didn't know this. Well, I guess by 3:30, there were 20 people in his parking lot waiting for the truck to finish unloading everything. And he went out to them and he said, this is what I've got: 2 E.H. Taylor barrel proof and 2 Old Weller antique. And everybody's like,
glad you're patient.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just the state of how bad it is. People will follow trucks. There were people just driving around waiting for the national truck to pull in. And, the greed is just...
Kenny and I have done that before. I'm not gonna lie.
I was going to say, following trucks a couple of years ago was actually a really good tactic of mine. Now it's like everyone's way too far ahead of me.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Don't get me wrong. I've done it before. However, nowadays there's no point in doing it because if you're gonna here's the way it kind of works here is that no matter what, this is how all the stores work. You either you've built a relationship with the store owner. He's not going to sell it first come first serve to whoever just shows up. Those days are not going to happen. Second is that you can follow them there, and then you're going to pay 3-4x retail for it.
right? They'll do it for that, and you're going to pay $300-$400 per bottle, right? That's a possibility. And then C is that you're going to show up and they're going to be like, oh, sorry, we're going to hold this for our Christmas raffle. So like, there's no point in following trucks. Like there's just really no point in doing it anymore. At least that's how it works here. Now, I don't get me wrong. I'm sure. And I know somebody that did it with Van Winkle, like back in 2012, 2013. Yeah. And don't worry, they cleaned house. Right. And it used to work, but it doesn't work anymore. So yeah, you can kind of quit doing it. I know a lot of store owners don't like it, especially the delivery drivers probably aren't fans of it because they don't want to be in Fast and Furious 9. So
they probably feel like rock stars, though. The crowd waiting for me.
The crowd
20
waiting
people
for
just
me.
waiting. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've even seen it now, like when they're unboxing a truck, like you don't even see Stag or Van Winkle boxes anymore. They like pack them inside like Old Forester boxes and all this other kind of stuff. So you don't even see the boxes anymore. So if you're trying to wait for it, like that's how they try to fool you. So
It's like the Willet putting the Willet 28-year boxes or something during Bourbon Fest.
no, yeah, they actually, they were just selling 12 years, but they had 28-year boxes that was in. So that started a panic for about 8 minutes, something like that.
Yeah. That's we in Florida we have the ABC stores, and everybody kind of knows their delivery dates. So you'll get to a store and you'll see like the $8 an hour guy just back there flinging through boxes, crossing stuff off the sheet, and like 10 guys just standing around watching him work. I'm like, he's probably never had an audience for his job before. He probably is like, man, this is awesome. Here we go. Just doing it extra slow to see everybody get more and more frustrated with him.
Yeah, I'm sure it's something that they either like or don't like. I don't really know. But when you're talking about ABC, this was actually something that I put out on our Facebook page today, and it was kind of a question that I put out there, was to figure out if you live in an ABC or you live in a government controlled state, because I'd mentioned that if you want antique collection, you want Pappy, like whatever, like you got to have these relationships, right? Like you have to have these. You need to be a good patron at a store. You need to do whatever it is to make sure that you're recognized there. But when you're in a government controlled state, and we have ABC stores and stuff like that, like what point does having a relationship even matter anymore? And I know that Blake, you're in somewhat of a controlled state, right? With Florida?
No, so they're not controlled. It's just called ABC. They do control the Weller line though. So
yeah,
but it's just like a big
hotspot.
A big what do you call it? A big it's not a franchise, but they have
Ponzi
locations.
scheme.
Yeah, it's a Ponzi scheme. No, they have locations all over the state, but it's not it's not like state controlled or anything like that.
So I think Florida and Texas were
back to the original question, I do think it still matters because
Florida and Texas were two states that had contracts with Sazerac before Weller 12 ever blew up. And I think they get a set amount. If I heard this correctly, something happened and Texas said, like the Texas ABC board and the Florida ABC board said, we want X amount of Weller per year before Bourbon blew up. And so those two states still get a large share of it, but the ABC controls, I guess, where it goes within the state. But they do get, like Florida and Texas are supposed to get really large Weller 12 allocations.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, it was on shelves here for the longest time, even after it was still gone in most other places. And even at that, I still kind of took it for granted. But now we're kind of on everyone else's track. We still get a fair amount, but yeah, I think Chuck even mentioned that in his last Bourbon Pursuit interview about how Texas loved the wheated bourbon and the Weller line way before it was, what it is today. So I guess Florida had about the same thing going on.
Florida was my go-to. I'd go every October to Santa Rosa, go to ABC, and I get I'd be like, Young Weller 12. We're like, yep, we got cases of it just sitting around. And I'm like,
take as much as you want.
Yep. And now I call and they're like, oh, we're doing a lottery.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
They still get the same.
Hold on a
share,
second.
but it's just, as you know, with bourbon, it's harder to get.
Yep.
Eric,
I'm like, you got anything good? And they're like, yeah, we got this Great Angels Envy, type shit.
Eric,
You ever had that?
What is your go-to weeded?
To me?
Yeah, usually Weller 12, I guess. I still have a few old bottles.
Pretty typical.
Around.
Yeah. So anyway, to kind of get back to the topic at hand again, man, we are off the rails like everywhere we go tonight. So it was there was a few different comments in here. So JC said, my buddy won the Pappy at a raffle and turned it down since he thought he entered the raffle to win the bottle outright until he figured out he actually had to pay for it. And then where was this at? Chris J says it's all lottery and VA. And this is kind of going back to, if you go to Bourbon Pursuit Facebook page, this is kind of where the conversation went, is when you look at some of these control states where everything is centralized through a lottery, you're talking VA, you're talking Pennsylvania, you're also talking Ohio now. This is an inherent problem that people have said, like, shit, who cares? Like, I don't need to build a relationship anymore because anything that's rare or interesting, like, they can't help me get it. They can only get what they can get. So really the only benefit of actually having a relationship is if you want like a random Elmer T. Lee or an old Weller antique, like that's
or
it.
if you need a new friend, you just need friends.
Or just a buddy, So I thought that was interesting to say the least. But. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll move to the next topic here. So Kerry did some sleuthing, and this was kind of a rumor that spread on Facebook this week, and then Kerry sends a few emails, and then we come to find out in 2018 you can expect no Eagle Rare picks to go to any retail stores. So Kerry, kind of talk about the story behind that.
So there are two things going on. Number one, they tried some samples of their Eagle Rare barrels. There is inventory, but they had a large rush on barrels, and they actually found that they're not tasting as good as they should be for 10-year-old. And so that, along with the fact that the demand was so high and they couldn't keep up with the demand, they decided that for 2018 they're going to shut the barrel program down completely for Eagle Rare. So that means no stores, no private clubs, no bars, nobody's getting any Eagle Rare in 2018. Now, the good news is what I've heard from them is that there's plenty of inventory, and in 2019, the program opens back up. It'll get back to normal, so all of the flippers will not profit off of this. What it will do is just basically reset the stock a little bit. And so I think, honestly, it's good. It's a good move. Instead of just keep pushing it out, give it some time to mature a little bit, get the program back on par, and that's what it is. But the good news is that right now is when all of the 2017 Eagle Rare barrels are coming out. So a lot of stores are getting it right now. There's still a bunch of stores in Atlanta that have them. So it's good to stock up. You don't have to go crazy on it. You don't have to buy cases, assuming that you're going to, like the Elijah Craig 12, the 12-year going away. Just buy a couple to have, because for me, it's my favorite everyday drinker. But there will be none next year. And I can tell you probably around this time next year, people will probably be paying maybe, double for one, but it's not going to be anything crazy.
So reiterate what the problem was again. Did you say the barrels just weren't up to par, or there weren't enough of them?
No, let me actually pull up the
Yeah. So what happens with all those barrels? They're just going to let them sit for another year? What if?
What if they suck next year?
The minimum age for Eagle Rare is 10 years. It's not the set age. It's the minimum age. They just have to be 10 years old. And so.
But how many barrels are going past 10 years within the last 4 to 5 years?
They actually had a miscalculation in the barrel model, and they did not have as many barrels coming of age in 2018. And the barrels they tasted didn't meet their profile standards. So they won't bottle any that aren't the best. So they would have had to drop the age statement in order to support the private program in 2018. So they held it back 1 year to let I think they have a lot of Eagle Rare that they made, 9 years ago. And
I think Buffalo Trace is the best at falsely creating demand of everything.
They should have hired me to do their Excel barrel projections. Never had a miscalculation in my Excel.
It's
and like
I find this
like
interesting.
VOB's allocated bullshit. Just crank that shit out.
Well, I find this like really interesting because, I've done an Eagle Rare pick before, and then most of the ones that were on the market, they're all like 11 and a half years old, right? I don't think I saw an Eagle Rare pick hit the market that was like, at like 10 years, 3 months, right? A lot of them were over 11 years old. So I was kind of surprised when I read this or, saw that.
Yeah, they, I think if you look at Four Roses as an example, their private program continues to go at the same rate. And, the recipes that used to be 10 plus years old are 8. They're getting younger, 8 years, 3 months for some recipes. You're getting a lot of Q yeast that I don't know why anybody would buy a Q yeast barrel, but they have to sell them anyway, so they buy them. But it's like the barrel programs are always going to exceed the supply, I think, until they start to limit them, and then when they do, hopefully the idea is that the supply, is greater than the demand.
So the idea is that there's just not enough regular store picks. However, that's not going to stop the normal distribution of Eagle Rare being blended and sold. Then, correct?
Correct. Yeah, there will be Eagle Rare. It just will be not private program.
Right. I'm kind of okay with that. I think when you give that explanation, I think I think there is a little bit more clarity there. I appreciate that you can say thanks for the transparency. I think hopefully this may open up something else. Maybe they'll say like, oh, maybe I will do more Blanton's single barrels or something like that, right? Like I'd like to see them open up something else as another avenue, right? I mean, how cool would it be? Yeah, I was gonna say, how cool would it be to have Elmer T. Lee single barrels again, right?
Yeah, I misspoke. I thought you were saying Eagle Rare was being not put out but it's only the private barrel picks. Okay.
Correct. It's only the private program.
I'm sorry, Buffalo Trace. I did not mean that.
Yeah, Ryan, you're gonna get us in trouble with like everybody, man. You know that, right?
I've already done
it. So, before we start wrapping this up, there is one thing that, kind of going back to the antique collection, and I had a friend send me a message earlier, and we kind of got to talking, and he has this theory, and I thought it was like, oh, it's a pretty good theory. So, as everybody kind of knows, that there were an insane amount of more stag bottles this year, right?
Yes.
What was it? 38,000. So 38,000 bottles. Now, if you understand or recognize, these were also 15-year George T. Stags too. This is also the 15th anniversary or the 15th, whatever, it's the anniversary of when the 2002 Stag was first released and they won Whiskey of the Year. So his theory was that they were onto something and that we could hopefully expect to see this many Stag bottles in perpetuity.
Yeah, it would be nice, right?
So I actually asked Chris Comstock that question. I think I'd seen that somebody had put that in a group or on Twitter or somewhere. So I asked him that question, and he kind of danced around it a little bit and said, well, any Buffalo Trace barrel that we tasted 8 years that's exceptional has the chance to go on to be Stag. But it does make a lot of sense that they would be cranking out a whole lot more when they're like, oh, man, people love this stuff. And if not all else fails, we got a ton of Buffalo Trace that we can stock up for in 8 years anyways. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a continued number of bottles for the next few years. Now, let that be said, and then next year it's going to be down to like 3,000 bottles or something. And we all go, what just happened?
Like, oh no, our projections were wrong. Go back to the spreadsheet.
Yeah. But I honestly wouldn't be surprised if that were the case, which kind of, the whole Eagle Rare didn't have enough for the barrel program made me think like, well, maybe they're stocking more and more away to get to Eeyore 17. It's been down. Well, it's always low, but it's even lower this year. I think it was only like what Eric's going to be able to answer.
1,600.
Yeah, what was like 1,600, 1,700?
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I would say maybe they're trying to, but look how much Stag Junior there is now. I mean, I don't know how many times I've walked into stores this year and Stag Junior was on a shelf. I mean, you couldn't find Stag Junior 2 years ago, 3 years ago, even 1 year ago. You couldn't find it. Now, just depending on the season, you can go into a store and there's 6 Stag Junior on a shelf. So I think it may just be one of those things where it's become more popular. People love the barrel proof. It's competing with Elijah Craig barrel proof and perhaps Booker's, even though Booker's did the whole price move. But maybe it's just they have a crap ton of mash bill number 1.
Yeah. And I think everybody's okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure. Because, I mean, it seems like, well, I know with Heaven Hill, the Elijah Craig 12 went away because they're pushing so much Evan Williams out that there's not enough to let it sit for that long. So I'm just surprised that they had enough to have a big push, because it seems like most distilleries are pushing their flagship brands more than the special releases.
That's funny. Somebody said, Jeremy Kendrick said, the more Kerry drinks, the lower he is going. It's kind of
He's slowly sinking out of the picture.
Pretty soon we're just going to see a visor.
There's another question from Kevin, and we'll kind of have this be the last question for the night because I know we're kind of rolling to the top here. So Kevin Brinkerhoff said, I find Buffalo Trace private barrels to be the least interesting. The only great one I've had is Blanton's. The most of them, he said, are pretty close to the standard profile. I kind of want to get your all's take because I can definitely see this being a typical thing, right? But you have to understand is that they want it to be, not completely different. They have to be somewhat close to just subtle nuances. I think that's the whole point of choosing a private barrel. But the ones that I've seen that have been either the most off profile or the ones that have the more unique taste to them are just a standard Buffalo Trace. Because it just seems like there's more variation with that mash bill or whatever's happened inside the wood, that you have a lot of different variations that's actually happening for that particular type. Do you guys have any other suggestions or ones that people could look for that might have, a little bit different flavor profile than just standard?
Happy 15 is really one that I think is a really good profile.
Well, I think that's the thing with these is it's like, it's just a slightly improved version, but you're still just paying $30 or $25 or whatever it is. And some of the Eagle Rare 10-year picks that I've had, like I had a cork and bottle pick that was just phenomenal. And it was $30. So it's like you could just stock up on this and drink this every day and be set. So I think that's where the advantage is. Well, it's not that different. If you get the right barrel, it is somewhat improved, but you're still paying the same price, which is usually a steal.
We had one of the funkiest. You remember that sample, Kenny? We had that funky Buffalo Trace somebody sent us.
Yeah. I do remember that. It was I forget who picked it or whatever, but I mean, we were tasting it and we were kind of like, we had no idea what this was.
Yeah. Cause he sent us like these blind samples. He's like, guess what they are. And like, we had no clue. And he was like Buffalo Trace. And we're like, that's not possible.
Yeah.
Was it non-chill filters? I can't be, but that's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Eric, I'll ask you a question to get you kind of hyped up here. What do you think of the NCF hype?
What was that you cut out?
What do you think of the NCF hype or the non-chill filter hype that's kind of taken over the market where it's all of a sudden demanding high prices and all this other kind of stuff?
Pass.
Which isn't it? It's something like over 107 proof. The 7 proof, the chill filtering doesn't make that big of a difference.
Under 94, you can't non-chill filter it because it'll get cloudy when you put ice in it. It's like 94, 92 or something like that. So
I think it's a whole thing where everyone was so dead set on getting an OESK from the ME portion of the warehouse of Four Roses. I think it's a lot of hype, but
I mean, hype drives this whole hobby, right? It's all about what's the latest hype and what's the. But I will say that non-chill filtered Old Weller Antique against chill filtered, and there's at least the ones that I've tried are better. Not to say that affects every product the same way, but for the Old Weller Antique, I do find that the non-chill filtered, we had a C+S pick that was non-chill filtered, and it was really good compared to some others. Now, that just may have been the barrel that was awesome. I think it's a good question for people to figure out whether they can really tell a difference between the two.
Yeah, that's there was somebody, I think it was Chuck or somebody had an article where they were talking about trying all the different filtrations of, I think it was Michter's 10-year rye, and they tried it like 6 or 7 different times blind or different kinds of filtration, and they honestly thought it was different ryes of how it was getting filtered. So it probably plays a part, but as for calling for a higher price, I don't know. I think it's still more hype on that part.
No, I'm totally with you on that. So I guess I think that'll wrap it up for this episode. I kind of agree that the NCF thing, the train can kind of slow down a little bit. Might as well just let everything be NCF at this point if it just makes everybody fucking happy, right? Like just let it go, right? So, but this was actually one question that Brian wanted to put out here, and Ryan, we'll let you order or answer because you seem to be the one that likes to cause the most trouble. What are U of L fans supposed to do now with their Rick Pitino and Jurek bottles now that Pitino has officially been fired from the University of Louisville?
Oh man, this is a good topic. Probably just they need to just open them up and like have a race to see who can finish them the fastest, and like just like in the pain of like all the shittiness they're going through right now. Because
I do have one question about this. Will Kenny get his Rick Pitino tattoo covered up now that he's been fired from?
Oh, me? Yeah, my Pitino tattoo, right?
Patino's got a tattoo that he's got to laser out because it says national champs on the back.
Louisville, yeah.
All right, so fellas, I want to say thank you again for joining our round.
The championship, or they don't know yet?
No, they forfeited, right? Yeah.
No, not yet. I don't. That's still being in the discussion right now. Who knows? This doesn't get posted.
They got to get through the first scandal to get to the second one, and then to the third one.
Yeah. It's turtles all the way down from there.
Fucking idiot.
All right, so guys, let's go ahead. We'll wrap this up. I want to say thank you again for joining the discussion tonight. I want to give you all one more chance to kind of go around the horn and let people know where you blog at and how they can reach you. Blake, you go first.
I'm Blake from Bourboner.com. Thanks for joining us tonight. You can find me at Bourboner.com. Bourboner on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. That's BOURBONR.
Eric, you're up.
Boner.
Never gets old.
No.
I'm Eric from Breaking Bourbon. You can find us at breakingbourbon.com. We do all the social medias. We try to bring a little something different to each of those platforms in case if you want to follow on all of us. And we launched Patreon a couple months ago, and you can check us out there for some little thank you gifts too.
Kerry, it's your opportunity to play cleanup. That's what you love to do.
Yeah, so this is Kerry, and I run strangegreenroom.com. And find myself and Eric and smallgreenroom.com. You can also find me on suburbia.com, SUBOURBIA, or Twitter at bourbon_gamer.com. And if I get drunk enough, I'll send you some samples. And we're pretty close to that, so stick around. And as always, thank you guys thank you, Kenny and Ryan and Brian, even though he's not here. I miss you, Brian. Heart you, boy. Thank you to you guys, Bourbon Pursuit, for keeping up these podcasts and sticking with it and entertaining us for an hour while we go for our walks.
You got it.
No problem.
Very
Anytime.
happy to do it, especially when you got a good banter like this. You know, it's really cool that we are in like the height of the season. There's a lot of actually whiskey news that's coming out, so we could almost do this like every other week at this rate because of just all the shit that's kind of happening. So
Yeah.
I know Kerry would love that.
Yeah, man. Every other week, let's do it.
Then he's gonna start asking for our advertiser money if he's.
I think we should just go no topic. Next week is just no topic, or next time we do it, just there's no roster, no agenda.
No agenda.
We just go for it.
Just freestyle the entire thing.
Yes.
But everybody has to come in at least 4 drinks deep, and we're just gonna go.
That includes Eric. Eric, you're coming back. You're gonna drink it before you go.
All right.
Yeah, you have to finish the entire thing at Parker's before you join next time.
Yeah.
All right. So, guys, thank you once again for joining. Everybody, make sure you follow all these guys on their social media platforms and also follow us on Facebook's Instagram, as well as Twitter at Bourbon Pursuit. We also have Patreon at Bourbon Pursuit to help support the show and keep it going. As Michael Urata said, don't forget to go out and buy the new Michter's 25-year, $800. It'll be on the shelves real soon. We didn't really we forgot to bring that one up, but
thank you, Michter's, for your sponsor. We'll look for your check in the mail.
And then go ahead, Brian, close us out, man.
No, thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to you guys for giving us your time. These community roundtables, I think they're our listeners' favorites. So I appreciate y'all taking the time to join us every month.
Brian, you know that Kenny does all the work, right? Like
90% of it.
All the recording. He's got to cut it all. Like, you have it so nice. You just chill.
It's perfect. I just show up.
It's the pretty face of the group. That's what he's here for. You know,
my pay reflects it too.
Yeah, you just got to have a base guy for this.
Yeah, I'm a little behind on sending stuff out, but it's coming. Don't worry. So appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.